cue that sweet intro music we have. Yeah.
All right, this looks like we're going. Everything's good. Technical difficulties aside, and those are out of the way. Bad Publicity coming at you with a special episode. This is going to be the one we call the one with Boggs.
The one with Boggs. That's solid.
Yeah, we couldn't think of anything else. We had some some Boston Red Sox references, but you probably heard all those before, right?
A couple of them, yeah. Probably.
Yeah. Michael, welcome to Bad Publicity, and thank you very much for your time. We'll get the thank yous out the way
Thank
first.
Thank you guys for having me.
We really appreciate how accessible you've made yourself after this announcement has come through. We didn't snag the ultimate first edition, but that got scooped. But we'll take the seconds.
There you go. Yeah, it was like there was a bunch of people that were messaging me at once, and I was just like, I don't know, it kind of worked out. I still got a few more, so
You're a busy guy.
People were like, do it, and it's like, I don't know, okay. So, but yeah, it's good to be on. I've actually been a longtime fan of the show, so it's kind of surreal that I don't know, it's weird. It's like it's kind of full circle for me or something.
Making dreams come true here. Huh?
Yeah, essentially, it's really cool.
That's awesome.
That's exactly what Corey said too on his first day.
Yeah, like one of the first times I watched the show was when Jameson talked about the 1,000 Cuts Black Tree deck.
Yes.
And then I was like, that deck sounds awesome. I'm gonna play it. And then I became like a Jinteki 1,000 Cuts player for the longest time, and it was crazy when I got the jump on. I was like, I watched the show and I fell in love with this deck.
And then I've been tapped out on creativity ever since.
Yeah, your moment of glory.
That was it.
Yeah.
So, in case you didn't know, guys, we're here with the new lead designer, Michael Boggs, and we're going to cut right into some introductory questions. Some of you guys have already read the articles, so we're not going to try and rehash things. We don't want to be that podcast that asks the same questions over and over. You got those canned answers ready. So why don't we just jump into some basic about you questions? So,
Sure.
What are some other what's your gaming background that you got going on here? What do you normally play? Board games, video games?
Yeah, I growing up, I pretty much played video games exclusively. Like the only board game I knew was Monopoly. Oh, I guess I knew Sorry and Monopoly. That was my whole board gaming experience until I got to Korea. It wasn't the first time anyone invited me to come, and it was like a board game meetup thing. We're just like, what? I don't want to play Monopoly for 6 hours. I'm not. And they're like, no, there's other stuff you can play. So we played. I'm like, oh, these are really cool. There's a lot of variety. There's a lot of options. So I'm a pretty big gamer. I play pretty much anything I can. I'm not too specific with what I choose. Any sort of video game I'm usually on board with. Anything competitive. I really love competitive stuff. Used to play a lot of StarCraft 2. Played some League of Legends for a long time. Played some Call of Duty and Halo. I was terrible at those. I'm the worst first-person shooter person ever. But I played them and I lost, but it was fun. Anything where I can compete with somebody else. And I think when I was growing up throughout middle school and high school, I played a lot of Magic because I was a super cool kid, and cool kids play Magic in high school. But then after that, I didn't really play anything throughout college until I got out and went to Korea, and then I found Netrunner, and I've just kind of
because you were heavily studying during that time.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. I was trying to get the best grades, so too engrossed in my classes to do anything else. So.
Is there anything coming that you're looking forward to? Be that it doesn't have to be a Fantasy Flight release. If you're a company man.
Actually, honestly, I haven't. Since I've gotten back and just I've been traveling for a while, I haven't had the chance to sit down and play a console game in forever. I don't even remember the last time. The new Legend of Zelda is coming out tomorrow or something. I want to play that so bad. I've played Zelda since I was 13 or 14, and I saw it like a month ago was like, that looks really cool. So any open world thing like that, I really like the open world stuff. You can just explore around and do your own thing. So I don't know if I'll buy the new console. I forget what it's called. I think the Switch or something. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I might buy it for that, but we'll see. It's like, I feel like it's one of those things I'll buy and I'll play for like 5 or 6 hours and then never touch it again. Not because I don't like it, but just because I get distracted with other stuff. But I think that's like, I really want to play that. I want somebody else to buy it so I can go to their house and play it at their house, and I don't have to worry about it. But,
Smart man.
Yeah. You save some money. Why not? That's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head. That's the only thing I can think of off my head.
Sweet. Cool. Jameson, my next question?
Sure.
Excellent. All right. So how would you describe your design style? Are there certain like elements and things that you really like, or like since you're a fan of?
Yeah, I think whenever I really like, I'm the type of gamer who gets like bored really easily if there's not a lot of like action happening. If I'm not constantly engaged, anytime I play a game, if it goes longer than like 90 minutes, I just zone out. Like, I don't care if I win, I don't care if I lose. I just like, it has to really keep me in there the whole time. And I've played a few games like that where they'll go a little long, 2.5 hours, and like it's a really interactive experience, and those are fine. But anything where like my turn doesn't come around for another like 5 minutes, I'm just like, whatever, I don't care. I can have all my resources. I'll go do something else. So that's usually that's probably the design goal that I always try to keep in mind. Do things that keep people really engaged, and I think Netrunner just at its core already does that. But I definitely want to, anytime I'm designing a card, I'm always trying to think like, how is this going to affect how players play off of each other, and what they can do later, and I just want to make sure that there's always that back and forth, that there's never a strategy where like I'm doing something and you feel like you can not do anything against it, where you're basically just watching me play solitaire. I hate when games do that. So
yeah,
I think that's probably my biggest thing.
Awesome, sweet. All right, Hollis, you're on deck.
Good luck.
So so someone said this in the chat. Like, obviously, like based on your own personal interest, it seems like you are an eclectic gamer. Like, you like, it's not just analog games for you. It's not just card games. You like video games and card games and board games. So like, now that you are you're lead designer of Android Netrunner, are there any designers that you sort of like you admire, or that you get a lot of like cues from, as far as I don't know, I guess are influential to you? Or anything like that?
Sure. I think for board games, I usually look a lot. I look at Eric Lang's stuff. I think he does a lot of really cool stuff. I haven't had the chance to meet him yet, but I hear that occasionally he comes by Fantasy Flight, and I'm probably gonna like just squeal when he walks on the door, and he's gonna be like, "Well, just leave." And he'll be like, "What are you doing?" No, I would love to meet him. Pretty much everything of his that I've ever played, I've always enjoyed. When it comes to video games and just design in general, when I was in college, I didn't play a lot of games, but like the one game that I really did play, I played a lot of WoW, a lot of World of Warcraft, and the lead designer for that, his name is Greg Street. He goes by Ghostcrawler, and he used to like post up all of his like design logs. Anytime they'd make changes, anytime they do anything at all, he was always consulting the community, letting them know what was happening. He just seemed like a really cool guy, but he always had these like really, they were deep, but they were simple explanations. This is why we're doing this. This is what we think will happen. This is what we're trying to test. This is what we're trying to fix. And just kind of having that very direct communication with the community, I always appreciated as the player. And going forward, that's definitely something I'd like to do as much as I can, because I always thought that was the coolest thing. Like, he just seemed like a dude you could just, talk to about anything. I don't know. He seemed like a cool guy, and the way he described stuff was so to the point. And I'd like to emulate that as much as I can.
Sweet.
Yeah, I think that's something I look at too. I like to know some of the reasons behind things, and I've seen a lot of success come to games that the people that make them are involved in the community as well, right? Yeah. Or even sometimes it's just the fact that you acknowledge that you read the posts and stuff. I've seen the guys in Hearthstone just say, like, we don't post a lot in Reddit, but we pretty much try and read as much of the feedback as possible.
Oh yeah, I'll actually jump on board with that. Like, I haven't. I'm still sort of in this weird gray area where I don't know, completely what I'm can and can't do. There are some restrictions on certain things, and I'm still kind of learning those. So like, the Reddit is actually a great example. I'm on there pretty much every day or every other day, just reading anything that anyone throws up on the Netrunner page, or all the Facebook groups that I'm a part of, or StimHack, or anything like that. Like, I try to just, I don't post at all, but that's mainly because I just kind of like to absorb everything. I like to see what people are talking about just sort of naturally. I don't want to jump in and then suddenly they're like, sometimes people change what they're saying based off of who's around. I just want to kind of read what people are actually thinking about.
Yeah. Oh my God, he's watching me.
Exactly. I don't want anything like that. So I definitely try to do the same thing. And I think it's very important to really design a game that people want. Like, if you don't know what people like or dislike, you're not going to make the best game that you can. Like, you have to stay connected with your player base.
Yeah.
You don't want them to strip your Fantasy Flight wings so quickly, right? So that's why it's hands off.
Yes, probably. Yes.
Can you talk about if you've had any examples of, like, those light bulb moments that you had when you first played Netrunner that you thought made this game so special, where you were like, oh my God, I want to design Netrunner cards?
Man, I've had so many of those. There have been so many moments where it's just like, I've never really had a game make me feel so, like, just, I don't know, just, I guess excited, for lack of a better word. Just like, there have been so many plays that have just, like, come down to the wire, just come down to, like, one credit, and it can be completely, like, it can just make you feel so good, or just make you feel like crap. Like, I don't know, but it's at the same time, it's a good feeling no matter what, even if you win or you lose. There have been, like, early on when I first started playing, when I got to Korea. So I played for a while with a friend. It was just me and him. Got to Korea, met some people. We had, like, a small, like, draft tournament. And in the draft, I got hemorrhage. So I don't know if, I think I came in, like, second place that tournament, but pretty much the whole tournament, everybody was a little newer. They all forgot that you could purge virus counters. So I was just, like, running on everything, and I would just collect all these virus counters, and then the next turn I would just wipe out HQ. And then I do it again and again and again. And it wasn't until, like, one of my last games, I think it was maybe the very last game, one of the more experienced players, he walked by and he was talking to the corp, he's like, why don't you just purge those? And the guy's like, I forgot you could do that. And so for this, like, whole tournament, like, I was so happy because nobody knew they could do it, and I wasn't going to tell them they could do it. I probably should have, but it was just like, but, like, that whole time, I just felt like that, it was kind of cheap to do, but just that like, rush. There was this rush the whole time because I'm like, when are they going to do this? When are they going to mess up my strategy? When are they going to lock me out? I can't, like, get into archives anymore. And it took a couple games before that happened. So there's been a lot of experiences where it's just like these, just like things, like little things that I'll always remember. And I don't really know when that quite manifested itself into sort of like a want to design for the game. I think I've been designing for a long time. I've been developing my own stuff for a long time. And I think when I first heard that this position was available, I was just like, yeah, that would be awesome. That would be amazing if I could do that. It was sort of like a pipe dream, and somehow, I don't know what I did, but it became a reality type of thing. So cool. I think just like, having those experiences and having all those just really awesome moments with the game, it's something that I'd like to give other players going forward, newer people or even experienced players. I think, like, if I can take that and somehow put that in the game in my own way, that would be awesome. And that's kind of like That's kind of like why I want to design Netrunners, just because I want to give people those moments.
Was sitting down for that interview like sitting at the Wayland board of directors with all these shadowy figures, and they're all just looking at you?
I was in Korea, and they wanted me to fly out and talk to them. I think like I think at some point in the process it was like missed that I was abroad, and so I was talking to someone through email, and they're like, "Oh yeah, when can you fly here? Would you be available next week?" And I'm just like, I'm in South Korea right now. Like, I don't know if I can make that trip. And she's just like, well, we can do Skype instead. I guess that's okay. So it worked in my favor. But yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking for sure. It was definitely the people I talked to were awesome though. Like, it was probably one of the best interviews I've ever had. So,
nice.
Not really, for sure.
Sets the tone early, right? When you can just click like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely like, it was, of course it's a place that I wanted to work, but like after that interview I was like, I definitely want to work here. It's like one of the coolest places ever. So it has definitely turned out to be that for sure. And I'm not just saying that because if I don't, I'll get fired. No, it really is an awesome place to work. It's absolutely amazing.
Have you eaten one too many Fantasy Flight grilled cheeses yet? Are you at the tipping point?
But the club sandwich is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, if you're around the club sandwich, it is really good.
I think I've eaten everything on that menu. They even put the Canadian poutine on it for us when we visit.
Yeah, I've only had poutine one time, I think. I have a friend, Ryan, he's from Toronto, and we found some restaurant, some bar in Korea, and they served it, and he said it was like crap poutine. I mean, it's French fried gravy. Like, I don't know how it can be bad, but whatever. He said it was terrible, and I should eat real poutine. I haven't had Fantasy Flights yet, though.
It was good. It was good. It was
Okay,
it was worthy.
I'll try some real poutine and get back to you.
All right, Corey, let's dive into some Netrunner questions. We've broken the ice enough here. Let's get the hard-hitting stuff that these people want to hear.
The hard-hitting.
Yeah.
Sure.
The hard-hitting news. Oh.
All right. So in the initial interview article, you mentioned your favorite corp, which you put as Jinteki, I'm assuming. What's your favorite runner faction, and what's probably your favorite runner ID that you enjoy playing a lot in the game?
Oh man, I would say by far my favorite runner faction is Criminal. I just like if I can run 4 times in a turn, like that's my favorite turn. I'm gonna run, not do anything else. And I don't know, I've just had so many just like really just exciting games with Criminal. All of them obviously, but something about Criminal that I just always enjoy playing. But as far as my favorite ID, for a long time it was actually Ian Sterling. I made this like really janky eater keyhole Ian Sterling deck where you just like let him score 2 points and then you just never stop running on R&D. But here recently, I would say that probably I seem to play a lot of Quetzal or Quetzal. It depends on how you want to pronounce it. I always say Quetzal. I always play her. I don't know why, but like every time I sit down to build a deck, I'm just like, I'll start with Criminal or start with Shaper, and then I just always end up making a deck for her. And it works about like, 30-40% of the time. I feel like whenever I'm playing as the Corp and I'm playing against her, she just blows through all my ice, but whenever I'm playing anyone else, they only have Code Gates and Sentries. So I don't know. I get unlucky, I guess. I'd say she's probably my favorite. She's just so simple, but like there's so much potential for early game aggression, just to do stuff that you shouldn't really be able to do, and she's just a lot of fun for that reason.
I thought maybe we could get you to slip up, and you're like, well, my favorite runner ID is this new one that I've made right here.
Oh, I also really love Geist. Geist is kind of
I knew it.
I haven't been playing for a long time, but I forgot about Geist.
I got a question for you.
Did you mean Adam? Did you miss?
Yeah, that one too. He's like, I like all the manufacturer runners. I never, like, aside from Adam's solid. Apex and Sunny, like I can't get him to work. I don't know. There's something about, like, especially Apex, because I really want him to be cool, and then he never works out for me. But at the same time, like, I see other people play him, and they do really well. So I'm just a really crappy, pretty much non-criminal player.
Hey,
Like,
guess who's got the power to fix that though now?
I should get a hold of that guy.
No pressure. No pressure, by the way. No
Yeah,
pressure.
Hollis, sorry to get in there. You're up.
So so my question to piggyback off Jameson's is like, can you tell me what Guy's favorite kind of pancakes are? But that's we could talk about that later. My real question actually is truly piggybacks off Corey. So I guess I'll just like be specific here. Like I like. It's interesting that your favorite like runner faction is criminal, because I think that if you talk to a lot of people, like a lot of these, usually their faction preference stems out from like what you just said. Like, I like that I get to run 4 times in one turn, and it's something that's very specific to this runner because they get the most out of it doing that. So I guess to piggyback off that question of your favorite like runner faction, do you maybe even have a favorite Netrunner or a favorite runner card? Period. Like,
just a card in general?
Yeah.
That would be Sneak Door Beta. I love Sneak Door Beta.
Oh, nice.
That's it's so simple, but just like when you throw that down and the other person isn't expecting it, just the look on their face where they like roll their eyes and really gonna Sneak Door Beta me. I don't know. It's just, and like, it's so easy to get around, but that's just a fun one to throw down every now and then. And I always try to combine that with a bunch of janky stuff. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but that's always probably been my favorite card.
Nice. I really dig it also. So.
Yeah, that's a cool one.
That's an old school classic right there.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
But it'll never rotate. That's fantastic. It'll never rotate. It's there.
In the competitive scene, there's I assume in Korea there was a lot of ways to soak up what was going on. In the world meta, and everybody's putting their games up on YouTube and stuff now. Do you have a certain competitive player that you kind of tune in to watch the matches?
It sounds like controversy.
And maybe even the person that maybe brings interesting decks, or you like to watch, or if you see their name in the description, which now every Netrunner game will have this name for the views, but.
Honestly, there's no specific player that I can think of. I mean, I kind of like treat watching Netrunner games like I treat watching football. I love to watch football. It's my favorite sport, but I don't have like a specific team. I just like watching the game. So when it comes to Netrunner, it's pretty much the same way. There's not any one particular person or even set of particular people that I really enjoy, because everybody's got like a different style and stuff. Honestly, I just like watching. I don't really I don't usually like click on any specific videos or anything, depending on
except ours.
Yeah. Except for you guys, of course. I mean, that's unspoken. Everybody else, everyone knows that you guys are my favorite. That's already out there.
You say that to all the podcasts. So it's not like so you'll watch any game. It's not like football, where as soon as the Dallas Cowboys out, I don't need to watch anymore.
No, I mean I'm pretty much so for me,
Dallas.
especially now, like it's great for me to be able to gather that information, like when anyone's playing. But before, when I was just a player, like. Usually I would watch games on my lunch break. Like at school, I'd take my lunch up in my room, and for 30 minutes when the kids are outside running and yelling and screaming at each other, I would have 30 minutes of semi quiet, and I just like tune in whatever game or whatever channel I could find, and just usually watch whatever was kind of available. So no, I'm not. I don't really have anyone that I'm really drawn to specifically.
Cool. Corey, passing the talking stick.
Oh.
The talking baton. The talking pillow. There you go.
All right. So from your international experience, can you talk about how you feel Netrunner is doing outside of the U.S. Or the North America scene, which is what a lot of us are most of us are kind of familiar with? And how would you compare maybe the style of play or favorite like decks or techniques from some of the different metas across the world?
So I mean, my only real experience there is with things that I've seen on Facebook, but also what I would play against in Korea. The Korean meta, when I was there, the Korean meta was very, I guess, North American influenced because you had so many foreigners from Canada and from the U.S. playing. When I was like the first 2 years that I really played, it was we only had one Korean player, and all the rest of us were either Canadian or American. But when I moved up to Seoul, there was a much bigger meta there, and they actually. So I was under the assumption that they only had the core set and Data and Destiny. Apparently, they also had the Mumbad cycle as well. They had like 5 out of 6 packs. I guess I forgot about those cards because all I remember is DLR Val at that time. Every time I played, they would just mill the crap out of me.
Oh my god! Yeah, wow.
It was not necessarily the best experience in the world, but so I went to a couple games. There
DLR
were,
hate. You heard it here
social
first.
Events, a couple tournaments, and it was like a really weird meta. For any player that was playing with Korean cards, I mean, those were the only cards that were available to them. But a lot of the Korean players would sort of import English cards because, I mean, most Koreans can speak English fluently. So I don't know. It's really hard to say. The meta was very Western influenced, I guess, for lack of a better term. A lot of people were playing NBN. A lot of people were playing Anarch. There wasn't at that time. It was very much Wizard and Near Earth Hub. You get some Val every now and then. So, which is what seems to be pretty similar over here as well. So, over the last few weeks though, I have been trying to like sort of branch out and see what people are playing, kind of across the pond, just, everywhere as a whole. And there seems to be quite a bit of diversity. Some of the Facebook groups that I followed, they'll post pictures and whatnot, and you get some metas that are pretty much entirely Shaper. You might get some metas that are only playing Wayland. There seems to be diversity, but it's hard to say for sure. I mean, those might just be specific tournaments even. I wish I had more information on that.
No, it's cool. It's a good start, though. You're looking into it.
Yeah, it's nice even having just like the experience with non-North American players. I mean, that as a whole, like, it was really. It's like a really cool cultural thing sometimes because Korean culture is very, very interesting. There's this like tiered hierarchy where everyone's like very polite to each other. For the most part, there's this social age system. And playing with some of the Korean players, like you'd sit down and you'd start to play, and then they'd be like, "How old are you?" Because they wanted to know if you were older than them and if they should like treat you with honorifics and stuff. So that was like a really cool. Because like you're playing with an American player and they just sit down like, "I'm gonna kick your butt." So
Yeah, they need to adapt that age system over here so I can win more games, man.
Oh god.
That's the new format. That'll be at Gen Con. Let your elder win.
We were actually. It was a secret until now. But
Oh, I love revealing the spoilers. Yeah, and just to also, although it wasn't specifically said, that doesn't take any love away from the UK. Right? We all know current world champions, or the world champ, is residing over on that island.
That's true. That's true.
Mr. Hollis. Uh-oh.
All right, Boggs. All right, it's time, my friend. It's time. So here we go. I'm gonna break it down for you. So,
Break it down.
first thing, welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have you. You seem very awesome. Like so far, I actually like.
I am awesome. I'm glad somebody else recognized that. I've been thinking of that my whole life, and nobody's ever told me to.
Your
My
response
mom
so far.
said it.
Oh, we talked about this before the show. Sorry. We did. But okay. So basically, you are coming in at a very, I think a very interesting time in Netrunner. So. Sure. To give a small breakdown, some people in the chat will disagree, some will agree. So here's what it comes down to. So we had one lead designer. We had one lead designer. We switched to Damon. Okay, Damon. I felt like Damon, while always, he'd always been in the design, aspect of the game. He was lead designer for what I think is maybe even a short amount of time. He might have even gotten a lot done in that amount of time, but it's very short. And unfortunately, his departure is at a time where there's a lot of kind of questions that a lot of players have concerns about. Now, those concerns can stem from the game getting stagnant based on certain, like, what is used as, like, what's called non-interactive decks, certain, goodness gracious, silver bullet cards that are out, like maybe even too many of them. So you're the new guy on campus, right? We want to see what you got. We want to see the skills that pay bills. So the real talk question for you is, you're coming in, and I feel like there's a lot on your plate already, just coming in as the newer guy, but also the game seems to have a lot of people that have issues with it, of course. So to the people that have concerns, the people that are worried about the current state of the game, and wondering if you are up to the challenge, Mr. Boggs, what do you got to say to them, buddy? Like what is your statement to them?
Yeah, I'm up to the challenge. I think I don't know, not to toot my own horn, but I'm going to toot my own horn. I think I'll do really well. In the last month and a half, 2 months that I've been at Fantasy Flight, been working on the game, I was nervous going into the job, but once I got there and I realized what was entailed, like it's a job that I've been doing for the last like 5 or 6 years, just not on Netrunner. Like the whole design aspect, all the responsibilities involved, it's something I've been doing for a long time. And I feel like one of my strengths as a designer is listening to feedback and really paying attention to what people like and what people dislike. And I think that people, or at least I really hope, but I think that people are going to be happy with the direction that I take the game, because I have a lot of experience as a player. I have a lot of experience, going up against those strategies that are just non-interactive, and I want to stay away from that as much as possible. I definitely want to take it in the direction that I can be proud of and that people can really have fun with. I think I'm going to do well. I think I'm going to do well.
Well, true or false, this is the first time they've let you outside since you started.
That is completely true. That is totally true. When I came in, they had like a little dog kennel thing, and that's where I've had to sleep.
They said go make some icebreakers.
It's in my contract. It's there in the fine print, but it's comfortable. They gave me a pillow and a blanket, so it was okay. It was worth it. No, I've been very, very busy since I started. It has definitely been a very fun last few months, but I think I think I'm up to the challenge. I think I'll do really well. And I know that when the article was first announced, some people were concerned with like my design experience and things. I've been designing games for years. I've been developing stuff for years. In the article, they mentioned that I had a game that was about to be published. Like, if you can get something to as close to being published without it being published, that's where my game was. Like, I'd been talking to a publisher for a while, and it just happened that things didn't quite, I started at Fantasy Flight, and there are just some policies in place, some conflict of interest, and it was sort of unfortunate timing. That's how it worked out, but I have a lot of experience doing this type of work. I've got a lot of experience with games just like Netrunner, and I've been playing for years and years and years. So I think I have a pretty good understanding of what people enjoy and where to take the game.
You mentioned keeping the game very two-player interactive and not so much those solo play decks. Do you have any other design goals for Netrunner, like little mini ones that you've set for yourself, or larger ones that you're going to just swing the whole thing one way?
I would. I'd really like to explore some mechanics. I actually mentioned this the other day, but as an example, I'm not saying one way or another, but as an example, power counters. I've always liked power counters. They're simple. You're just putting tokens on things, but something about them, I've always wanted more interplay, I guess, between them. I've always wanted more things to kind of you be able to actually, like, this is my power counter deck. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. We'll see, because there's a lot on my list, a lot of things to do. But that, I would like to explore some of those mechanics that haven't really been fleshed out so much, that are sort of there but not really focused on. Because I like making decks that can do a bunch of different stuff, and I definitely like to open up options for players when it comes to deck building. I'd also like to do some things with like the color pie. I think that Lucas and Damon, they really set up the color pie to include very specific mechanics for every faction. And there's been a little bit of overlap over the years, which I think is fine. I think that's going to happen no matter what. But I definitely want to make sure that there are some really clear distinctions for some factions to the others, and there already are, but just reinforce that. Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I've got like a list at work. It's a program that I've just got all this stuff that I'm like, I need to do this, check it off. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of different things.
You just mentioned power counters. So you mean the time for Helium-3 deposit to finally be an amazingly playable card might be around the corner?
Maybe. You never know. You'll have to wait and see, I guess.
Oh,
But that's one of those cards. Like, when it first came out, I'm like, oh yeah, this is cool. And then I tried to make a deck, and I'm like, what's this gonna, like? I don't know. Please put your Ottoman down so I can mess with your Ottoman.
Right.
It's pretty much an option. And I want to any sort of like niche card like that. I want to make sure that you can develop a deck that is somewhat, somewhat powerful, I guess. It doesn't have to be a top tier deck. You don't have to put the Helium-3 deposits in the next deck at Worlds. But if you can actually make a fun deck that works with that, I think players want that. I think a lot of people want to just play with those lesser known cards. And that's also something like, there are a lot of cards throughout the years that weren't really much of anything, and then something comes out a little later, and suddenly it's just like, oh, this is awesome now. This is a great combo. So I think Lucas and Damon definitely set that up for me to sort of continue, because I would really like for people to just sort of to pull out that binder fodder and actually make use of it if they can.
Do they have like a secret Grail diary that they've shared with you, and they're like, these are all the combos that nobody found yet?
Yeah, it was like this whole ceremony when it was came in, and I was knighted, and they gave me the book. It was a whole thing. So unfortunately, I can't disclose what's in there, but it's pretty awesome. I'll say that much.
One day monolith.
Well, you never know. Jesus. You never know. That's going to be a tricky one, but possibly.
Corey?
All right. So I'll pick up next then. So since you already talked a little bit on, just kind of like where things are at and what some of your design ideas, if you were to not analyze or just kind of look at kind of what the players are looking at right now, are you happy with the current state of the game where it's existing now? Or do you immediately see some issues or problems that may need to be adjusted?
I know that a lot of people I've talked to have told me that they're still sort of stuck in this bubble of just Anarch and NBN. That's pretty much all they play against. I was actually at a tournament here recently. I was marshalling a tournament, and there was a lot of honestly, there wasn't as much Wizard. And there wasn't as much controlling the message as I was expecting to see, but there was still quite a bit of it. And Abram Jop actually won that with a Dumblefork deck. I think it was Dumblefork, and his controlling the message deck. He there was some stiff competition, but at the end it came down to those were like the two decks that were being played. So I think like right now we're in this. Aaron Marone just came out.
Hey, Ron.
Aaron, yes.
Aaron, may Aaron.
Which I think is gonna, as time goes on, I think that's definitely gonna mess with CTM. And in my mind, Wizard has always sort of been a response. He's a powerful runner, and he definitely does some things that are just really strong sometimes, but I think like he's there to respond to asset spam, and as long as asset spam is dominant, he's going to be dominant. But as soon as like there's any sort of answer that comes along for asset spam outside of him, then I think there's going to be more option for what people can run in response to what they're playing against. So I don't know. I think we're kind of in a weird time right now with a few cards that came out recently and some stuff that'll be coming down the pipeline. I think that I think it's really hard to say. I think things are going to shift relatively soon from what we're used to. At least I hope they do, because I've heard a lot of people that have said that like the game has almost become stagnant in a way, especially at the competitive level, because they're just playing two colors, and I'm hoping to get more diversity as things go on, because it is a little too much orange and a little too much yellow right now.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
But I think that will change. I think that'll change relatively soon.
As a side note, congrats on your first marshalling.
Yeah, thank you. I literally answered one question, and then I was like nervous. I know the answer to this, but I gotta go look up the answer. So like I ran into my office and like was flipping through pages. I'm like, okay, fine. But that was my I did it. And I answered one question and then just sat around for like 8 hours. But it was cool. It was awesome because I got to meet a lot of really passionate players. I got to meet a lot of people. So I'm going to marshal as many events as I can, and I got free food all day, which was amazing. Wow. I'll do anything for free food, so yeah. I definitely cannot complain.
What does it really take to get the ruling to swing in favor of somebody? Is there something we should be bringing, like Cadbury cream eggs or something that would tip the scales? Is that a scale tipper?
I would Rice Krispie treats. Bring me some Rice Krispie treats, and I'll disqualify the other player. I don't even care.
Noted.
And then I guess another side note is we can congratulate you on your first contribution to the community. We saw your name throw up on the anchor. You're now doing your first unofficial frequently asked question.
Oh yeah, that was actually a lot of fun. Working with
Jacob and the boys out there.
Yeah. They are they're very impressive. Like it's a pleasure to work with them. Jake's really cool. When I first came in, I got this email from Jacob Morris, and I'd heard of him, but I'm like, that sounds familiar. I talked to Lucas, and Lucas is like, yes, like do anything he wants to do, because he's a really cool guy. So yeah, it took us a little bit longer than I think we were expecting. I was kind of swamped with stuff, but we eventually got through all the FAQ stuff, and I'm glad some of it's out there, because
it was dry for a bit.
Oh yeah. That's what he was saying. He said he got backed up with things, so that was something that I always relied on. Like it was my friends and I, like whenever we'd have an issue, we just go to the unofficial wiki, and it's such an awesome resource to have. So I'm definitely glad I can help that.
Yes.
Hollis.
Well, you know me, I like to ask like the straightforward questions. This is sort of related to Corey's question then. So, based on your understanding of the current game, you can be as specific as you want. I'm not necessarily asking for like a specific mechanics, but I mean you can give one. What in the game do you think is working, and what do you think is not working? Like, what do you think it just isn't even a good thing in the game right now to you?
I touched up on this a while ago. I mentioned blackmail before. Blackmail is not. It's I've never had good experience with it. It's one of those cards, like, unless you are specifically teching against Val with blackmail, not a lot you can do. They just make that run and steal whatever agendas you got down. Blackmail. DDoS, that card, DDoS is a weird one, because sometimes it's not an issue, and then there's just some games where you're just like, okay, well, I can't do crap this whole time. So anything that prevents the other player from having a counterplay, anything like that, I think it's data link reversal isn't what it was. It's not as bad as it used to be, but there for a long time, I just used to get. People just used to mill the crap out of me. It was terrible.
Yeah.
I feel like the game should be about runs as much as possible. That's where the interaction comes in. Between those runs, encountering the ice, accessing things, taking punishment because you did that, like that's the whole point of the game, and I think that should be happening as much as possible. As far as things that are going that are doing really well, I think sometimes it's easier to pick out the bad things. It's sort of it's easier to see what's not working instead of what is working.
Right.
I'd say most things that aren't the non-interactive stuff, that isn't the there's a lot of asset spam. I actually like assets. I love assets. I used to play a ton of like just really asset heavy decks for the longest time. I made like a Engineering the Future completely horizontal deck. I think I had like 10 pieces of ice in the thing. That's one of my favorite decks to play, but that type of stuff has just gotten out of hand. I don't know. I think there just needs to be a little more balancing with that. But I don't really have anything specific off the top of my head that I think is really working well, but that's not to say that there aren't things that are really working well. I think it's just easier to find the things that are not.
Yeah, but that's what gets the views, though. Nobody wants to come to or listen about everything that's going smooth. Like, how about that game? It was good.
And that's the thing. I'm afraid if I start talking about the good stuff, people are just gonna click off.
Yeah, appreciate it.
No, I mean, there's a lot of. I think there have been some really interesting cards that come. I think there are really interesting cards that are coming. I think I really have enjoyed stealth lately. I like the boost to stealth. Netmerker and all that stuff is been pretty cool. Smoke, she's pretty awesome. So I think there are definitely a lot of good things, but I think right now people are noticing the bad more than they are the good.
Yeah, we had that.
When it comes to competitive play,
we had that discussion an episode or so ago when we were talking about blackmail, and it was my argument that Val was the problem, not blackmail itself. Right, because it used to be so much harder to get a bad publicity, right? Like frame job, forfeit the agenda. You had to, either tag yourself, off turn and stuff like that, and like it was just so crazy. And then at that time,
really had to work for it.
Blackmail was fine, right? Like, okay, you want to forfeit your agenda? I'll let you run in and get another agenda. I think that's an even trade, especially in like the shell game style, right? Am I forfeiting a 1 point, get a bad pub, run in, take a 3? Mm-hmm. Right? But then when you start with one, I was like, oh man, this is handcuffing the design space here.
Yeah.
I like Val. I enjoy her just for that aspect of it, because she has like one of the rare abilities that you can actually like just totally take away from her. If you can remove that bad pub, then she's just like, well, half my strategy is gone. But you're right, like in combination with blackmail, and that's the thing though. I think like blackmail, I'm just making assumptions here. I don't know for sure, but I would imagine it was like one of those things when Val was being designed, it was probably like, okay, she's going to be powerful with blackmail, but you're only going to get a couple runs like that. It's not a big deal. In the meantime, you'll make other runs. They'll be able to res ice, but then there's just been so many things that have sort of comboed so well with her, and I'll be happy when blackmail's gone. I'll be happy when that one's gone.
Can you talk about your thoughts on game balance? Like, what do you consider a healthy meta? Like, what percentage is fun, what is competitive, and what's the in-between crazy, I don't know, the jank stuff, I guess that's the word people like to use. Or even like for game balance, like when someone says game balance in Netrunner, what do you think of?
I think I tend to think of anything that is kind of like I mentioned before, that has a counterplay. Even if there's like a really strong card or a really strong strategy, if there's a way to get around it, if there's something you can do to shut that down, then I think most of the time it's probably balanced. As long as it's not this like unhealthy, non-interactive, negative play experience type of thing, I think like having those strong strategies, having those strong cards, having those strong combos, those are what make games really exciting. Every game needs to have that for players to like really want to enjoy their time. If you're just having all these like vanilla cards all the time, you'll eventually just, it's just like, okay, well, there's nothing really cool that I can do. You always want to do cool stuff. So sometimes it's hard to say specifically in Netrunner what is balanced and what is not. Like in the last month or so, I had a lot of assumptions going in, and I've realized that like one card for one faction might be completely broken, but you put it in another faction and it's totally fine. It totally works okay. So it's very much it's very much like a relative thing. And like when it comes to the percentage of competitive and the percentage of casual, I'd actually say that like competitive, when designing for competitive players, that's a relatively, I don't want to say small part of sort of like the design focus, but it's more about like making things that are fun and making things that are like interesting and cool and that people really want to play with. And I think at the end of the day, like the most important thing is to try to focus on balancing cards that are really fun and really exciting, and then people will sort of put together their own stuff and decide what is competitive and what is not. And it's totally fine to have, some cards that are like weird and wacky and zany that are never going to make their way into the top tier tournaments. Those are fun cards, and some people really enjoy those cards. You definitely have to keep both in mind, but I think the main focus is just making interesting, exciting stuff. And then the whole competitive aspect, like the community will sort of take that and run with it as they will.
Yep.
So it's almost like you're balancing fun, variety, and like freshness, like all wrapped together.
Exactly. And the whole competitive thing is always, of course, there. Like I have to make sure that whatever fun thing I'm making isn't totally going to destroy the game for everyone else. But that's not always the target necessarily. It's usually about making just like you said, fresh, exciting things, and letting people play with those and letting people sort of build the decks and do with them what you will.
Are you a numbers guy? Are you someone that's gonna like, for balance wise, do you feel like you have to crunch the data and be like, so right now, Wizard or Anarch is winning 80% of the games, and then after you release a pack or so, and you're like, okay, it's down a few, I can and like I can rebalance some things and shift things around. Like, are you trying to think that things need to be on that even playing field where it's almost, or do you believe in like a rock paper scissors matchup where like, this guy is always going to beat this and this matchup is always going to win here, and it just depends what you bring?
Honestly, if we had this discussion about just game balance in general, like 3 months ago, I would have probably said yes to all that. That was very much my style for the longest time. Like I'd sit down and just map out everything. I'd have these huge spreadsheets. Netrunner is such a complex game, and it's so many things to so many different people that I've kind of had to a certain extent, let go of that. And it's been something that's probably been one of the biggest challenges for me so far, is just sort of like realizing that not every single number necessarily has to match up exactly with every single number. Though I will say the whole rock, paper, scissors analogy, I think that's generally okay. I think like if this deck type is really strong, as long as something else can come and beat it, but something else can come in and beat that, I think that's usually an okay goal to shoot for. But at the same time, like you can't always necessarily predict what exactly is going to take out something else. So you just kind of have to, there's a lot involved with it. And luckily I have a lot of people around the office to help me. I have a lot of people that have a lot of experience, and it's a very, Netrunner's been a very interesting beast. It's very similar to a lot of the stuff I've worked on, but there are definitely some new things, and there are some things that I've had to let go of and sort of relearn, and I really enjoyed it because of that. But it's hard to say necessarily what the balance is sometimes, because it changes. It can change from pack to pack too.
So do you think that, I know it's probably part of the experience of working for a living card game, but is it weird, like, do you kind of get to the point where you just have to say, like, the people that play this game are going to be better than, like than you as a designer eventually. Like they're going to be better
yeah,
at the
completely.
game. So you just like kind of do the best you can and then release these cards to the wild, and then the people are just going to take the state of the game and make it something that you didn't see coming, or
Well, yeah, I honestly, I've always sort of believed that like any sort of like good design is like if I sit down and I put my all into a cycle or a pack or whatever, at the end of the day, when that product goes out and everyone buys it, only like 30% of that design is going to be what I brought to the table. Like a good like 70-80% of that is going to be from like play testers and players and just feedback that I got from them, from things that they're saying that they like and that they don't like, and that they they think they could make it better in this way. They think we could do this, we could do that. So like there are a lot of people that are way better at the game than I am. Luckily, a lot of my play testers are way better at the game than I am, and I think keeping an open mind to that and being cognizant of the fact that like sometimes like I don't have all the answers for everything. I might think I do, and I might throw things out there, but it might come back and people are just like, no, this isn't working. And being able to listen to that feedback, I think, is very, very important. I think it's probably one of the most important things in my job. Like if I can't listen to the feedback, if I can't recognize when people probably know things better than I do, then I'm not going to be able to make an awesome game. And I'm always trying to be mindful of that.
Nice. Corey.
Awesome. All right, I'm up. Okay.
Woo!
So kind of change up a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about the new player experience.
Sure.
Let's say you're a new person and you're wanting to jump into the game of Netrunner. I think some reservations that we kind of get from some folks is it feels like it's a little intimidating. The card pool might be starting to get almost to like not nearly as close, but in that Thrones 1.0 era, where now like someone wants to get into the game and it's like, cool, you need to get 3 of these starters, now these 3, potentially 4 big boxes, and then now you have like this big number of cycle packs you have to hunt down and track to find what you want. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like that's really intimidating for a new player, and maybe if there's any insight for anything other than rotation that might be helping that for someone?
Sure. So I think that it kind of depends on how you're trying to get into the game, or why you're trying to get into the game. If you want to get into the game just to play the game, just to have fun with it, I think that's like honestly relatively easy. Like when I bought the core set and I played that with friends, and I realized that I liked this faction and this faction the best, and then I went out and I bought the big box. And after playing with that for a while, I'm like, okay, I've played with Criminal and Jinteki for however many months now. I want to go out and I want to get, I think around that time, like Order in Chaos was coming out. And then I started like buying all like the data packs. Well, I had a lot of data packs before that, but I think you just got to figure out the factions that you like, and you have to figure out like the cards that you want. And there is a lot of information there, but I think if you go slowly and sort of like just just kind of discover things as you go along, then I think like getting into the game is not that difficult. However, if you're trying to jump in it and be competitive, yeah, I was talking to somebody just the other day over Facebook, and he told me like he bought the core set and he liked it, so he went out and bought everything else, and his wife was angry at him for it, which is cool. I mean, he wants to buy all the cards and stuff, but he was like, I'm trying to go through all the stuff, I'm trying to learn all the cards. I can't even imagine that. Like, that's really impressive. There are so many cards, there are so many different things, and I think some people definitely, they want to play it competitively. They're a competitive gamer, and they're like, okay, I have to get all this stuff now. But aside from those people, I think most people can just kind of go slowly. They can just, just pick the stuff that you like, that you think you're going to want to play, ask your friends, watch stuff on Bad Publicity, kind of learn all the cards there. Some of those videos, like a while back, I don't even remember when you did those, but you had like those the data packs that you could buy and all that stuff. That was like, some of that stuff was like really, really helpful. So like go out and try to find information on that stuff if you're really interested in getting in the game, and just enjoy the process. I think that's the most important thing. Enjoy your time with the game, play the stuff that you think is going to be the most fun, and don't worry about getting all the most competitive stuff immediately.
If there's anybody out there that watches this video or listens to this podcast, and you can rip all the good stuff that he's saying about Bad Publicity into little sound bites, and then send it to me, that'd be so good. We can just cue it up on a button somewhere.
It'll be an intro reel.
Yeah,
It'll just
yeah.
play as we load up. Yeah. Cool. All right, Hollis, you're up, man. Take it away. Did you lose your place?
No, I'm good. All right, so here's the thing, Boggs. Hashtag Boggs.
Hashtag Boggs.
Hashtag Boggs. So, it was Game of Thrones 1.0, right?
Yep.
They had this ridiculously big card pool, and ultimately that created challenges. We know that in Netrunner they're gonna have a rotation cycle that I think begins in September maybe of this year.
Yeah,
Whatever.
allegedly.
If that boat
like-
comes.
It'll be around that time. So I guess you being the new lead designer coming in all this, has rotation created any design challenges for you as far as how you plan to design cards? Because you're coming in knowing that things from the first two cycles of the game are going to be gone.
Yeah.
Does that mean that you get to? Also, I guess a piggyback question from that is, do you get to sort of? I hate to say this, but do you get to sort of copy cards?
Yes, I do.
The art, just change the art.
Yeah,
It's the same thing. Yeah, it's just different.
Yeah, I mean to an extent, right? Because I feel like there's going to be some cards that are rotating out that you'll rationalize. A version of this card is needed.
Sure.
It's important to have it, like Plastreet Carapace or stuff like that.
There are definitely things like that for sure. There are. I think actually, if there was a time that I could come in, this is by far the best time because the fact that rotation is happening soon, I can really decide on anytime you're taking over a game like this, or I would imagine anything like this where other people have sort of directed the game in the way that they see fit. There's always going to be this Lucas did an amazing job, Damon did an amazing job, but I'm going to have different things that I want to do. I'm going to have different design styles than both of them. And the fact that I'm coming in when the game is sort of getting that fresh start is just amazing. And there are definitely cards that are going out that might not have worked the way they were supposed to, or might have worked way better than they were supposed to. And I get to look at those and I get all that data, and maybe the card really needs to be in the game. Maybe any of those cards that are out, they were created for a reason. All those first few cycles, Lucas would have been the lead on that. Damon would have helped him. Those cards were made for a reason, but I can determine why the cards were either too strong or too weak, and then kind of go with that. It was actually a huge relief when I realized how much stuff I was going to have to work with and how much data I was going to have to work with, because it really gives me a lot of freedom in what I can do. So I would say I'm not going to copy any cards to a T, but if people see things that are familiar, then I hope they realize it's because those cards are necessary. Those effects are necessary, and those are things that are they're around for a reason, essentially. And I'm hoping that people, if they see anything new like that, I'm hoping that they it's sort of a nostalgia type of thing. They're like, oh, this did this and now this does this. So I don't know, we'll see. I won't say that there will be a ton of stuff like that, but I think there's definitely potential to always recycle those old concepts and give them new life.
Is it weird that you're essentially, when that rotation hits, going to be like the old man on the block, since no other designer in Fantasy Flight, no other card game that they've had has hit the rotation mark yet, right? Netrunner will be the first. So is everyone trying to throw in their opinions? And
there's honestly the whole rotation thing. I think that was all decided so long ago. They realized that the game was going to get to that point that there have been a lot of people that have sort of really helped me along with that, because I was sort of stressed out about it at first. I was like, oh, this is really cool, but there's all this stuff going out and I have to make all this new stuff and blah blah blah. And it's they've been really, really I mean, sure, there's definitely been influence from other people and whatnot, but it's been very supportive, like because it is this like really not new concept, but it's the first time, which everybody's excited about.
So, are we really going to be okay without Jackson Howard?
I think so. I think we'll get by.
Okay.
Oh no!
Okay. Nervous.
That question is so dangerous.
I think when Jackson Howard came out, it was at a time when like the corp really needed something like that. But I think as time has went on, like there started to be more and more cards that sort of kind of help do what he did,
Agreed.
Get those agendas back in, sort of filter out your hand.
Yeah.
And I think more than anything, I think players just sort of have to kind of. Even when I sit down and build a deck today, I put Jackson Howard in my deck. Even though like I know he's going away soon, like it's just one of those things. I'm always used to having 2 or 3 Jacksons. That's like the first card I throw in. It's like hedge fund, Jackson. Those are the 6 standard cards. And you just have to get out of that mindset. You have to realize that there are other options. They might not be as efficient as he was, but he was pretty bonkers. He was pretty crazy. But at the time he was fine. Like he definitely did the work that he was supposed to do. But I don't think we need him anymore necessarily.
What did you mean by the 2 or 3?
With Jackson?
Yeah.
Is there only one right answer? Only 3?
Yeah, only 3.
You only play 3. I don't know what you're saying.
Sometimes I would cut 1 for a few other things. It was rare. I will say that much. Like if you can have 3 Jacksons, put in 3 Jacksons.
Living on the edge, my friend.
Cool. Is it me? Am I up?
Yes.
You taking it? Okay. What is your favorite mechanic in the game that you're excited to kind of dig in and explore more? And like examples would be like Trace, Bad Publicity, Psy, stuff like that. Is there one of those like minor mechanics that you're kind of excited to play around a little bit more?
Oh yeah, completely. I mentioned power counters before. I think doing something with Bad Pub would be cool.
Yes.
Here's a soundbite moment. Bad Publicity is the best.
I love the fact that you gave us the warning too. You queued it up.
Yeah.
Now we can go to that
Somebody
mark.
can just hunt that down. That's all I need. No, like there are a lot of little things that I'd really like to do. I'd like to explore like just the way that damage is kind of messed with, and I've always been a Jinteki player, so I always like doing the 1,000 cuts type of thing, throwing out all those little damage. But I think like there's a lot of wiggle room with how meat damage works, or even how net damage works. There's a lot of things. I'd probably say the one that I'm most excited for is, if I had to pick one, it's probably Bad Pub.
Yeah, because that whole cycle's rotating out, right? Like that whole that second cycle. That's where the Bad Publicity was all accumulated, right? So.
And I think there's a lot of really neat stuff that could be done with that. I think like for the longest time, tags were not something that runners wanted to get, and now some runners really want to get tags. Like they work to get tags. So I think it would be cool if down the line maybe some corps like really work to get Bad Pub. Obviously, it would fit with Valen, but you might be able to spin it into other things too. So I think there are a lot of options. I think there are a lot of things that can be done with that, but also a ton of other stuff.
As a side note to that, how's your Psy game? Are you on point with those?
I lose every single time. I am the worst. So as the runner, I just default to 0 now, just because it's like I'm gonna lose anyway, so I might as well just not spend anything on it. And every now and then, it's supposed to be 33%, but it's like 5% of the time I get it.
Nice.
As the corp, I pick the most random thing that I can, and then somehow the runner's just like, I knew you were gonna pick 2. I knew it all along. So I don't know. I'm terrible. Caprice. Everyone always like hates on Caprice. Caprice has never done anything for me. Like she's never done any work at all. Me and her do not get along because she's just like, I always fail those. Which is crap for Jinteki. Like if you're going to be a Jinteki player, you need to learn how to do the Psy game. But I don't know. I motion out June bugs and then beg that the runner runs on them. It's like, please do it. Please run on this. This is an agenda, I swear. You're going to get points for this.
Oh my goodness.
Hollis.
All right, Hollis.
All right. So, okay. You actually just stated that like Jackson Howard is like pretty much it's if you make a deck, you're gonna have 2 or 3x of it, like usually every time, right?
The Foeman.
So it's basically an auto include.
Sure.
So in your opinion, do you normally feel like those sort of card choices are bad? Like, do you think, as like in general for game design, do you think it's usually bad if a particular card is like, okay, if I make a deck, no matter what deck I make, this deck has 3 of this or 2 of this or things like that?
Generally, I would say yes. I think there are some exceptions with something like Hedge Fund or Sure Gamble, very basic, economy cards. But I think most of the time, I'm one of those players. I'll play a deck for a couple days. I'll spend hours and hours and hours designing this deck and putting it together, and I'll play it a few times and this is the best deck ever. Let's tear it apart and make something else because I'm bored with it now. Let's try something new. So I love just doing new stuff. I love just doing decks that I'm pretty sure are going to be crap, but they play differently than other things that I've played before. So I'm going to make them. And there are times where sometimes I would cut one Jackson Howard, which apparently is a sin against mankind. But,
It is.
How did you get that question? How did you in the interview process?
Yeah, I'm lucky they didn't ask that because they would have turned off the Skype call if they had. Only 2 Jacksons, we're done. But no, sometimes feeling like you have to include a card is not even hedge fund. I like when I can make a deck that doesn't use hedge fund. If I can do diversified portfolio or some of the HB deck that I used to run only had diversified portfolio. I didn't even need the hedge fund. And I think it's cool when you can break those molds. There are concerning factions. I think sometimes having those cards in factions that most people are going to want to play in that specific faction, I think that's okay. But it definitely shouldn't be something that's cross faction. The fact that Jackson Howard is mandatory, it's not his fault. He's a great guy. He seems really nice, but it shouldn't be something that every single corp automatically is well, if I don't have this in my deck, I'm going to lose. There should be more option for the players. Players should be able to take different routes to get to their goal. And if they're all including one card, then I think that's a design mistake.
Yeah. I think you're making a lot of people feel good right now, especially our buddy Spags, who started the hashtag Sure Gamble's a crutch. Right. So I even myself I like to hear that kind of stuff that those auto includes, it makes you think. Right. I think that's what good design does, right? It makes you think. You present the player with choices.
I agree, and that's I think any sort of card game. I've always been drawn to card games because of the whole, the customizable aspect. I can make the game that I want to play. I can design this in my style, and I'm gonna do. I actually mentioned this in my article. The fact that I've sat down and I've played my friends' decks before. They'll bring a deck to play, and I'm just I forgot mine or whatever, and so they'll give me their deck, and I completely am destroyed because I don't I can look through all the cards beforehand, but it's not my style. They're doing something different than what I would do, yep. and I think being able to just bring your own personality into any sort of game like this is awesome. But if you're forced to include specific cards, then it's it's curbing your creativity, and I think being creative with your decks and just designing the deck that you really want to play, that's one of the best things about card games. So if I can open up the options as much as possible and really make it to where Sure Gamble is not always an auto include, then I think I've done something well. I've done an okay job somewhere.
I think it's fitting that this one lands on me. And you kind of touched on this question a little bit with my divine love for Adam. Do you know what can we expect from the mini runner factions? Can we expect those to continue and to see support in the future?
I can't say too much about that, but I will say Yes. I will say yes.
Yeah, I guess I guess
you
any
know,
card. I guess they have 25 influence, so any card is technically.
anything's fine. Yeah, it's the sky's the limit.
Yeah, I'm supporting them with 20 new
they'll-
cards next pack. Jeez.
They I really like the mini faction runners. I suck with them. I'm terrible with all of them. Adam, I'm okay with sometimes. Apex, I like thematically. He's just like the sentient virus thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to work them properly. But I think like most people would agree that they need some love. I think coming down the line, people should pay attention to the cards that are coming along. That's all I'll say. That's all I'll say.
Perfect.
Excellent.
We'll expect that fourth mini faction soon.
It's the Boggs faction. It's just me. It's got all the best cards. From Corp and Runner. I just put anything.
Oh, I like
Yeah.
it.
Deck limitation can only include 2 Jacksons.
Nobody plays it.
Nobody plays that
Yeah.
deck. It's like that. The ID is too restrictive.
Yeah. All right. So we've got Terminal Directive coming around the corner, hopefully soon. ETA soon. And so a cool thing about that set, right, is it's coming out with a new way to play Netrunner. You have this whole storyline develop. It's got a nice like casual play type experience for it. Are you, I guess, like a big fan of that idea? Are you interested in kind of exploring different avenues with that with Netrunner? Maybe there already are some ideas like that cooking up in HQ that they're planning to kind of some different things that maybe we don't expect, or something that is kind of popular with the player community that might be supported more by, you know, the grand game as a whole.
Or even like bringing in like the whole legacy aspect into Netrunner. So if you use a card, you have to rip it in half, you know, and just.
You only get Jackson Howard once. You pop him and then he's gone.
Oh, you definitely pop them.
Yeah, I mean, when I first heard about Terminal Directive, I was like, okay, that sounds neat, putting legacy stuff and Netrunner stuff together. I actually haven't had the chance to play it. I'm hoping to change that this weekend. We'll see if I have the time and if things work out. But yeah, I think it's like a really neat thing. They're not two things that I would have personally put together. Just like, oh, this is a legacy game. This is Netrunner. Let's make a legacy Netrunner. But now that I've seen how things work, and I've talked to some of the people that worked on it and that helped with it, like it's a really, really cool experience. Like if you like anything thematic, like I think people are really going to enjoy it. As far as the future is concerned with it, like if it's something people really love, it's definitely something that we could offer more of. Any sort of thing that allows players to play in a different way and to interact with the game in ways that they're not necessarily used to, I think is good. I think it just brings about new life, and it just lets players have this fresh perspective. So I'm excited for when it comes out. I think it's got some really cool cards and mechanics in there that people are not used to. I want to see how the community reacts, because I think they're really going to enjoy it. And if it gets to the point where everybody's just like, we need another thing, then I'll take a crack at it. I mean, I don't have any experience designing legacy games. They always seemed like something that was really cool, but I was an independent designer for the longest time, and legacy games are like, they can be done by independent designers, but they take a lot of work. They take a long time to develop. But I know there's a lot of people at FFG that had a hand in making it, and I think I think it'll be cool to see where things go and just to kind of see the future of that, because I think it's still up in the air. Like, people are gonna love it, but yeah, we'll have to see what happens with that.
Awesome.
All
right, Hollis, do you want to wrap up this section of our questions before we move on to the next section?
Yeah. No, I got something. So I guess, given the fact that you are now behind the veil, right? Like you're the inside man.
Yes.
In your opinion, are there any IDs that inside looking out, effectively? Are there any like underrepresented IDs in your opinion? So you look at the current card pool. Really?
No.
I was like, really? Like that's the one? Like that's the one you think is under? Okay, all right.
It's just gonna
Like,
trigger.
Huh. I was like,
okay.
I was like, hold on, where's my hat at? Where's my real talk hat? I don't know where I put it. It's somewhere. But
So
no,
any ideas that I wish more people would try out?
yeah, sure, that works.
I mean, I don't know. I think it's like, I think, man, I don't know. It's hard to say. I feel like most IDs have had, like, at some point during the game, most IDs have had, like, their moment, their spotlight. I always really liked Ian, and he's done some work. He's done some work in the past, maybe not as much as I would like, but that was always sort of like from a player thing. I think as a designer, like, even if I like to see diversity in the game, and I want diversity in the game, and if there's not diversity, then at the end of the day, that's kind of my fault, because I'm not offering the options for players to have fun with different things. But at the same time, like, if 1,000 people want to play Kate, like, if that's the runner they enjoy, like, if that's the one they have fun with. So I don't know. It's really hard to say if there's like one specific runner that not even runner, just identity that I'd like to see more of. Maybe Tenon Institute.
Oh, nice.
I always thought
I like that,
that's
actually.
A good one. That was a fun one.
Yeah.
And like, from what I remember, or at least in my meta, always playing, like, there was only one guy that ran it, and he would make the weirdest decks you've ever seen, and then he would just destroy you. Like, he just totally it wasn't even a competition. And it just always felt like one of those identities that could be really, really, really strong, and then just for whatever reason it wasn't. And I think moving forward, like, just with, I don't know, I think I maybe it's one of those that'll come up later. It's one of those that I'd like to see come up later. But it's really hard to say for sure, because I think at the end of the day, as long as people are, like, having fun with stuff, then whatever they play is totally cool. Like, whatever they play is as long as they're happy with it.
So we're gonna get into some questions about competitive play, and I think this section might go a little quicker because I don't really know how much influence you have on competitive play, or if that's kind of like just straight handed off to the organized play department and their decisions. So we don't really have to spend too much time on this kind of stuff. But some of the questions, we just got to get out there, even if you have no comment. We just don't want people to say that we didn't ask.
Sure, fair enough.
So any thoughts on the competitive play environment, or is that pretty much just left up to the, like, other people? Like, you give the tools, and what people do with them is their stuff. Like, even for other formats like that, 1.1.1 is 1.1.1, or I don't even really know.
Onesies.
Oh, the 1.1.1.1.
Yeah. Like one,
yeah.
what is it? One core, one big box, one data pack, and then one card.
One card.
Yeah.
One credit the whole game.
You just one card in your deck. That's all you got.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Jackson Howard.
Yeah.
That's a little bit outside of my realm. I can make suggestions. Like I said before, like, I'm always collecting data, and I'm always, like, looking for information on what players are liking and disliking, and I pass that along sometimes. I've definitely talked to a couple people from organized play since I've been at the job, but most of that stuff I have very, very minimal influence on. Like, there's not a lot that I can do there. That's kind of out of my hands.
I think that crushes pre-canned question number 2, Corey.
Hey, it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with rejection.
Yeah.
Look at me. All right. So, are there any changes in organized play that you would like to see, even though, like, you may not have, like, a direct hand, something that you maybe, like, drop hints or suggest, such as, like, ability to use dice or take notes, or any small little things that they might have done in one of their update documents that you might like to shift?
Not off the top of my head. No, I mean, most of that stuff, the whole organized play aspect is some of that stuff is a little new to me because I played in tournaments in Korea, I played competitively, but it was always just like nothing was necessarily official. It was just store stuff. It's it's just a bunch of people getting together and sitting down and playing, and you would obviously follow the MWL and stuff, but people just kind of did their own thing, and it was more of what's the word, like an honesty system. That's not the word I'm looking for. An honor system. Honor system. I forgot the word honor. Yeah, I mean, like coming back, I haven't played in any sort of like official tournaments before. Marshalling was like the first official thing I've really been a part of. I think I'm still learning a lot, and I think like even if there were things that I wanted to change, like it's not really. I could talk to somebody about it, but there's a very slim chance that anything like that will shift because the whole organized play thing, it's like it's a whole thing. It's not just Netrunner; it's other stuff too. Yeah. So there's a lot of like standards that they have, and I think they try to keep things consistent across the board. And yeah, I mean, more than anything, I just give them data, and what they do with it is kind of their decision.
Do you think it would have been pretty crazy if you, like, before that article came out with like your picture and stuff, if you had gone like undercover in some tournaments and played in it and stuff?
Actually, that would have actually been really cool. I kind of did that with some Facebook groups. I joined like all the Facebook groups beforehand, and like I would like some stuff, and I was talking to some guy, and then the article came out, and he's like, "Oh, you're the lead designer," and I'm like, "Yeah, I am. I'm surprised." But, I think it'd be really, really cool to like go in and like, yeah, I missed opportunity. Maybe we can ask Fantasy Flight to take the article down and wait until it hits. And then, like, in a couple months, I'll go into one. It'll be good.
You have to do one of those spoofs like the athletes do, like dress up as an old man or something like that with like the makeup and go play some Netrunner.
That's good. Yeah,
but since you brought up three letters, a W, an L, and an M, in a totally different order, we'll throw this one to Hollis to break the next one down and segue.
Really? All right. So this is the controversial question. I mean, a lot of people ask questions about this in chat, and I understand. We've had Damon on the show before. We've had Lucas on the show before. We know there's a lot of things that you can't really go into a lot of detail about, but I'm going to ask this. Mr. Boggs.
Yes, sir.
Are you okay with us talking a little bit about the most wanted list?
I'll say what I can.
Okay. That's perfect. I'm going to take the first question about this, and we're going to pass it along, okay? That cool?
Sure. Sounds good.
In your opinion, do you think the most wanted list is a part of the game that will continue to exist?
Most likely, yes. I think when it first came out, like honestly, I remember when I first read about it, I'm like, this is weird, this is confusing. Like, why would they? But like once I realized what it did and some of the problems that it really helped fix, like I think it's such an invaluable tool. That I think it'll definitely be around for a while. I hope that people are okay with it because I think it'll probably stick around.
Yeah. Well, being a tactile card game, like something that you can like hold in your hand and touch, it's not just like you can release a patch for this game, right? Like it's not like playing Hearthstone where they're going to just nerf a card and they can just do it because they control like all the decks reside virtually, right? So I think it's as close to doing a game patch as possible, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this is better than some of the alternatives. I think like one of the big ones that I've talked to a lot of people about, and they're like, "Oh, we should errata cards." In some instances, in very, very minor instances where it's not like a huge functional change or it's just a clarification thing, I think that's fine. But like when you're going and you're changing like what the entirety of the card does, it just confuses people. And I think this is like, and it's something like you have to think about the whole time you're playing the game. Every time you draw that card, every time you read it, you got to be like, okay, this is actually what the card does until it's reprinted in its new updated version, and then you got to go and buy a card that you already have. Like, I think the MWL is you got to be cognizant of what's on the list. You got to pay attention there. And I think some new players sometimes they do get a little confused by it. I remember like introducing my friends to it as they got more and more into the game. They're like, okay, this is why does this do this? Why aren't these cards already? Why don't they already have this this restriction on them? And you have to explain, they're cards that were a little stronger than they needed to be or whatnot. But yeah. I think for the most part, like it's an awesome tool, and I think most people, once they've played with the MWL and they kind of see what it does, I think it's something that's probably good for the game. I think most people probably agree with that, or at least I would. I hope they do, because it'll probably be around for a while.
This is where we might get into a sticky question. Is there something that you can expand on? Or are we going to see something new with the most wanted list? Will it take a different shape, or are you happy with the structure that we're sitting in right now?
We're actually going to change the title to the Mostest Wanted list.
Oh.
Everything else is staying. We're just changing the title. That's what we're doing.
Nice.
I can't comment too much on that. I can't comment. I'll just have to say, all I can say is wait and see.
Okay.
Wait and see. Things.
Okay. By the way, as far as name changes go, someone in chat recommended that it be changed to Boggs Wanted List.
That's
just to make it about you, just so.
It's just my face. Like that's all. When you click on the list, it's just a picture of me.
Yeah.
No card restrictions. It just says Jackson Howard at the bottom. That's all. It's like ×2.
Two per deck.
Cool. So I guess to kind of take the last little part into that, Damon had like a 6-month freeze on any cards when they came out before he would touch or do anything on the list.
Sure.
Or make any suggestions. Do you see yourself kind of holding to that, or do you think you might be able to be a little more reactive based on what you see whenever it hits the meta?
I think that for me, I think the 6-month rule is a pretty good rule to follow in most cases. I think in some instances that might need to be broken. And I would like to. I think establishing a standard is a good idea, and I'm glad that Damon put one out there. And I would like to follow it as much as I can. But if there's a card that is immediately oppressive, or if there's a card that's just doing stuff that it really shouldn't do, not to say that there are any cards that do that, but if there theoretically was a card, then theoretically it could be put on the list before that 6-month mark.
So I'm gonna throw in this hypothetical one then, because the chat's gonna love this. So if you were a player, what could maybe be a card you think deserved an answer in a time frame shorter than 6 months in the current card pool?
Jackson Howard. Gotta get rid of him.
Huh. Jackson Howard?
Yeah,
what's
some
the
people
second
put
card?
More than 2 in their deck. I don't know what they're doing.
Try again.
What's the second card? No.
It's not Jackson Howard. I won't name anything specifically. But I will say that there has been a card, or potentially cards, that I've been told about that people think need responded to.
What faction?
The one with the colors, the colorful one. It has like it's like the something in the rainbow. I can't name it right now.
I tried, Chad. I promise I tried.
It may or may not be of the orange variety. I don't know. But cards like that are just maybe a little strong, just a little bit. They have more potential than other cards to be addressed early. But most of the time, if I can wait 6 months, if it's not something that's destroying everything, because I think it's nice to get a card and be able to play with it and not have to worry about anything for a while. You got this new card, like it's your new toy. Just have fun with it. If it's breaking the game, of course, it needs to be taken care of. But I think sometimes, honestly, sometimes cards will come out and they'll look like they're really strong, and then another data pack or two will come out, and you'll realize, oh, this actually isn't as bad as I originally thought it was. So,
right.
So I think the 6-month rule more than anything is just to let things adjust accordingly. And if they don't adjust, then they can be fixed.
Surprise! It's a living card game, right? Like things are gonna ebb and flow.
Yeah. I was going to say also, just as a sort of a weird aside, the 6-month ruling I kind of always respected because of that reason, Michael, is because it was always an idea that we get a pack every single month. So a card comes out, it seems like a really big problem. Yeah, that may be the case, but we don't know, as players, we don't know the full set release. We don't know every card coming out. So a card could be a problem for 2 weeks or a month, 2 months. And then you guys already have the answer available. Everyone's, running out with their pitchfork saying, kill it with fire. But there's already maybe an available answer, or at least one that's good enough to where the game isn't, quote unquote, ruined as a result. So I always respected that 6-month ruling, or that 6-month wait time, because it left room for the card pool to sort of adjust itself out. I think that's what Damon really was trying to say. When he said 6 months, he was saying, I want the meta to sort itself out for a little bit and see where it sits after all the cards are out.
And a lot of times it does. I mean, I remember cards years ago, they'd come out and people would go, oh, well, the game's broken now, and then you'd never hear about that card again.
Right.
So it's definitely, even if I were to put a card on the MWL earlier than 6 months, it doesn't mean that there aren't any options down the line. It might just mean that, the counterplay to that card is that the card's a little more potent than it needs to be right at that moment. And that maybe when the counterplay comes later, maybe there's potential for it to come off the list. I mean, things can always change as the game goes on.
Are you going to put your own spin on card releases? Like Lucas liked to spread stuff out. Like if there was pieces, say for the Kessias, or for example, right? How they all didn't come out together. Or sometimes you get a runner and then 2 packs later you get their console, and then Damon group things a little more. Are we gonna see your style of pack releases, how you bundle the cards? Or
I think honestly, I kind of like both of those styles, and I don't know which one. I remember when really early in the game, sometimes you get those pieces and it's just what was the first one of the was it Knight? Was Knight the first one?
Pawn came out.
Pawn was the first one,
yeah.
You just it just takes a while for those to come. But then at the same time, some of the stuff that Lucas did, where he'd do 2 breakers that are kind of similar but never do the third, and then Damon did all the stuff and it's you have all 3 of them. Sometimes I really like only having the 2 because it's almost flavorful in a way, but at the same time sometimes I really like having 3. I think that's just something I'll have to kind of discover as time goes on.
And then are you an Easter egg guy too?
Sometimes when I can be.
Oh, okay.
when it's possible. So I'd like to put things in there, but it depends on who's looking at it. Depends on who's kind of there's a lot of checks and balances. So I can't promise any Easter eggs, but it would be cool to sneak some stuff in there.
And then the last thing I have before we go to some chat questions, rapid fires, is again, as an Atom player, I'm gonna employ you to just keep E3 feedback filters with us. Don't cut that card. For the love of all that is holy, don't take that from Adam.
We'll just move it over to Adam. That's what
perfect. Just white. Card. I'll just white out all the blue around the frame.
Hollis, no promises one way or another. Maybe it'll stick around forever.
Hollis, anybody throwing some rapid fire questions out here? I know we've pretty much sucked his night away now.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't have anything else going on.
Man,
he told us he was going to give us 10 solid minutes, and we've trapped him here.
NPE, which is more. Oh,
negative play experience.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Which is more? So I've saved some questions. There was one that just got asked. I'll actually start with that one since I don't have to pull up my list yet. So Abram Jopp, I'm sure you're familiar with Abram and his other
I
contributions.
may have met him once or twice. Yeah.
Abram asks, which to you feels like a more negative play experience, Gordian Blade or Yogg.0?
Gordian Blade. I would have to say Yogg. I would definitely go with Yogg.
Yeah.
I think the the fact that you can't boost the strength is that can be an issue, but it's not usually an issue. Like, you usually just blow through the ice for free. Like, it's not a big deal. Gordian Blade is efficient, but like, it's you actually have to have an economy there. Like, it's not just about your virus counters or whatever. It's not just about making those successful runs and then lowering the ice. So I would have to say Yogg is probably more of a negative play experience. It's probably why it's on the MWL.
Yeah.
Hollis, what do you got next?
All right. The next one is. By the way, I forgot to copy who asked the question, so I apologize for not identifying these people. But one of the questions were, to you, do you think there will ever be a moment in time where non-agenda cards that are only playable in a particular faction will work? Because right now, agendas are the only thing in the game that are tied to a faction and they don't move.
You mean like a faction-specific ice or something like that? Like, I can't take my HB ice and put it in Wayland?
Yeah. That was a question that was asked. I know it seems sort of experimental.
That look on your face is like, I think I'm about stealing this idea right about now.
That's not a bad idea. I mean, it's really not. I think one of the coolest things for me as a runner is like when you get your console. And like, you can see that like the thematic ties and also the mechanical ties. The corp doesn't always have that. I mean, sometimes you might have an agenda or two that sort of like fits in with what you're trying to do. Some ice does it, but there's not really anything specifically that's for that corp. Not always. I mean, sometimes there is. But yeah, I mean, the sky's the limit. I mean, it's definitely. I'm not totally opposed to that idea. If it tested well and people enjoyed it, of course, it's definitely something we could put in. That's a neat thing. I never really thought about that.
All right. I do have a few more just in case. Is that cool? Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
This is the lightning round. Try and blast them through here quick.
Go!
I should also say some of these I 100% understand if you can't answer, but I want to make sure that I do ask them.
Yeah, that's fine.
Someone had asked about if you would consider a true hard ban list in addition to the most wanted list, or I guess as a part of it, an extension of it.
That is something I can't talk about too in depth. What I'll say is traditionally, Fantasy Flight is not a huge fan of ban lists.
Okay.
I tend to agree with that. I think most people want to play with the cards that they have. And unless like there is absolutely no other option, and there's usually another option, I think ban lists should be such a rare thing that if it can be avoided, it should be avoided. I'm not saying that it won't ever happen. I'm not saying that there's no potential for it, but if there are other options, I think most people in my department would definitely prefer that we explore those options first.
Got it. Excellent. Sorry, guys. I have maybe three more. Sorry.
That's fine.
So a lot of people. So a long time ago, I think we interviewed Damon about the playtest cycle, and the understanding we came to is that sometimes when those playtesters have access to cards, there may only be certain packs they have access to, or they have access to the entire set before they actually get divided out and things like that. But Damon also went into detail explaining how the players they have to play test are also kind of limited. Do you foresee any changes in with playtesting and giving them sort of this like wider play set scenario where, hey guys, test with only pack 1 and pack 2 as we see it. Test with only pack 3, 1 through 4, so they get an idea of what the meta will look like, to help you make decisions in the future about future card releases.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, that kind of already happens. Like, sometimes you have playtest groups that are only doing this specific thing and this specific thing. Yeah. Sometimes you have groups that are just doing everything to sort of get like a realistic interpretation of what the actual meta is going to be like. Sometimes you might limit people to just, like half of whatever. I think you can draw feedback from everything. I think each one sort of has its strengths and its weaknesses.
Yeah.
That's something that we already kind of do, and I think it's something that we'll continue to do.
Okay. Gotta keep moving along here. So,
Sure.
Someone asked, at the present moment, core set and the big boxes, of course, are not going to rotate, as in the current design. Only after X amount of cycles are out, the oldest two will rotate out. Mm-hmm. Is there a point you think, as a result of trying to keep the card pool smaller, where you'll have too many big boxes? And if so, have you guys considered also the rotation of those big boxes out of the current meta as a result?
I mean, it's possible. I can't. I mean, yeah, the boxes will stick around. I haven't really heard anybody talk about having two big boxes, but I don't know. I mean, I think if it's something we realize that we need, I think there's definitely potential for it.
Okay. Moving on. This is sort of old school, but what is something mechanically, thematically, if you can pick anything in particular, that's in the original Netrunner game that you maybe would like to see incorporated into this game that isn't already?
The original, like the 1990s Netrunner?
Yeah.
Oh man, I've never been able to play that. I have always wanted to. I have always wanted to play it. I found a PDF of like all the cards. It's just a spreadsheet, but it's got all the cards on there. And this was like 2 years ago that I found this thing, just because I was curious as to what was out there. Sometimes I'd watch like videos and then it'd be like, oh, this card is the same as this card was, and blah blah blah. I don't know that game well enough to really comment. I haven't been able to play it, and I've never even actually seen like a physical copy of any of the cards. So unfortunately, I don't really know.
Okay, got it. Right on the list. In Flashpoint, it seems to be there was a lot of what people thought were a fair amount of power creep based on cards like Rumor Mill and things like Temujin Contract. So, what are your thoughts on what can be done to kind of curb that power creep? Or even, do you even think that needs to be done? Like, do you think that those cards like Rumor Mill and Temujin Contract are even that much more powerful compared to other cards that already exist before it?
I think they put in a lot of work. Those two cards specifically. I think there are a handful of cards that really that most decks are going to include that are really efficient at what they do. Excuse me. Like I said earlier, I think having powerful cards is fun. I think it's exciting, but obviously you don't want them to be too powerful. When it gets into that area, I don't know. I mean, there are options. There are the power of the cards is sort of relative. They're just as strong as whatever's around them. So, like, moving forward, if it ends up being that there are a lot of cards like that, maybe it's better just to step up the design to be more powerful overall until everything kind of balances out. That takes a little bit of work. I think generally the easier option is just sort of like focus on those cards and trying to make counters specific to those, but that also has its own set of problems. So, I don't know. I think it's sort of a complicated problem, and it's definitely something like I'm always discussing with people, my play testers and whatnot. I don't know. It's really hard to say.
Okay. And the last question, I think I'm going to already anticipate the answer that I'll get, but again, you know how we do. We have to ask just so the people know that we asked.
Blueberry pancakes.
Yeah, there we go. And the secret is out. No, the question I have to ask is, can you give us any hint at all to the next possible MWL update? Because many people feel we are very much overdue.
The MWL update will have cards on it. Those cards. Well, no, honestly, I can't say much of anything. I'll say that it's something I've thought about. And it's something that has definitely been on my mind since I started, but I am not the end all be all with that, and that's sort of like a joint thing between myself and organized play. And there's a lot of kind of checks and balances when it comes to something like that, to make sure that any sort of thing that we're working on is definitely going to have the effect that we want it to have. So yeah, I know a lot of people definitely think one's overdue. I'll say that stuff's coming, but I hope that people can be patient, because I can't necessarily control how long it takes. And if it takes a little longer, it's definitely not because I'm just like oh, it's fine, it's not a big deal. It's something I know people want, and it's being worked on, but it's a process.
Awesome.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I apparently missed one question.
Okay.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Just
So
one.
it's yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, so then the one that I apparently missed was, is it possible that we'll see any? So we asked about onesies. We asked about
Sure.
the onesies format. Is it possible that we'll see any additional Netrunner formats like 2v2? Because the question came because, of course, in Arkham Horror, of course, it has like a 4-player experience in the Arkham Horror card game. So is there any plans to expand that sort of rule set maybe for...
Well, there was original, like, wasn't there like base rules for a 2v2 before? That was like sloppy.
Is that the one where like you got the runner and the corp on one side and the runner and the corp on the other side? Is that the one you're
Yeah,
talking
something like that. I've never tried it out personally.
Yeah, I've never actually played it either. I actually had my buddy Scott when I was in Korea. He was telling me about it. He said it sounded really cool. Anything like that, anything with tournaments or organized play stuff, like I mean, the only information I have is the information that they give me, and I don't get a lot of information yet. So yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if anything's in the works like that. I know I've had so many people talk about the 1.1.1.1, and I was actually in the middle of helping to organize one of those things. I don't think it ever actually got off the ground just because of the way it worked out with me leaving and coming back to the States. But I know that it's definitely something that people enjoy. I know having those alternative ways to play are things that people enjoy. Terminal directive is a pretty good example of that. So it's one of those things that I know people at FFG are aware of, but there are sort of a lot of things in place before. I don't know. I don't know if anything's coming out like that. I don't know for sure. I know some people would be happy if they did, but I can't say one way or another.
Okay. Perfect. So I know we said off the top some of the best things we like in game design is when the designers and the people behind the games reach out to the community. So Michael, we can't thank you enough for actually sitting down and probably overclocking this episode. You know, you let us.
No, it's fine.
You let us run right down. You know, top down.
That's totally fine. I think I definitely. So I like I said, I browse Reddit sometimes. One of the big things I saw when I was on Reddit, people were just like, "Who is this guy? Like, I've never heard of him before." And I get that. I totally get that. I'm an unknown name that's coming in and designing everyone's favorite game. So anything I can do to get out there and just let people know that I'm working hard on the game, that hopefully it's make them believe, I guess, that it's in good hands. Just sort of encourage them to have faith. Anything I can do to get out there in community and be a part of all that, I'm going to jump on it. So awesome. I appreciate you guys inviting me.
We'll see you next week then.
Yeah.
Fourth member official. Boom.
I'll just every episode. But yeah, I mean, I would like to do podcasts as frequently as possible. For me, they're a ton of fun. I get to talk about the game for a long time. So I'll definitely try to put them in when I can. And especially you guys, this is kind of surreal. It's awesome to be.
Cool.
Thank you for having me on.
Maybe we can try and, as your cycle slowly creeps up, maybe we'll try and arrange for a secret spoiler next time.
Possibly, and then I won't be the lead designer anymore. No, I mean maybe we can work something out. You never know. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for hanging out with us, joking around. Really appreciate it. Thanks for everybody that's hung out with us this late in whatever time zone you are in. Corey, you got anything to say to wrap this up while we have all these people here quick?
So real quick, again, huge thank you. I really appreciate your time. You coming on. A lot of really insightful stuff. It's really cool. Only little bit I have to add is everyone who's following and checking it out. Maybe this is like your 100th time checking out Bad Pub, or your first time. You got lured in. But we do have a Patreon. If you get a chance, check it out. There's some pretty cool stuff we're doing with it right now. Some neat stuff that we're trying to offer and spice it up. So it'd be really cool if you get a chance to check it out. And again, we also appreciate feedback. So we try to read through all your comments, check it out. And again, huge thanks. We appreciate it.
I'm actually going to jump in on that. I apologize. I'm going to subscribe to the Patreon. I didn't know you guys had one, but I'm going to do that now.
What?
Wow.
Yeah,
What?
I'm going to give you.
Thanks, bro. Thanks, man. I know that we're wrapping up, but I don't think Joshua will ever forgive me if I don't ask this question. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Mark, I can see right now the crust is already forming in your eyes. You're tired.
That's been like that since I started the job, so it's permanently there. It's just stuck to my face.
I know that, like, coming into the game when you obviously you've learned a lot from what cards work, what cards don't. So the question that Josh really had was, do you think that assets will retain, especially when you look at like IG decks and Hot Tubs decks? Actually, was was the name coined? Do you think that there'll be a different change in the power level of trash to res to cost of assets? Like, basically, is that going to be better balanced as we move forward from rotation, where those amazingly powerful assets are much, much harder to trash?
I can't necessarily say to a T how much that will change, but I'll say that my immediate my immediate design goal when it's come to assets is to make them just a little bit cheaper to trash. I think like anything that's like 5 or 6 to trash, that should be such a rarity. Like if you see that, it should be like a very weak effect. That's like, it's like if it's sticking around, you're like, okay, that's annoying, but it's not going to break the game. Whereas like all those really powerful things should never cost more than 2, but a lot of them should be around 1. I think like Noise is as dominant as he is because he has to be. Like he has the best economy for that. And I think if we're going to live in a world without Noise, like the runner needs answers to that asset spam. The most obvious way to give the runner answers to that is just to make assets a little bit cheaper. But it really depends on the card. It kind of depends on everything as a whole. That's my immediate kind of design focus, but I can't say that it'll always come out that way necessarily. It just sort of depends. But yeah, I think there could. I think adjusting those costs a little bit is probably necessary going forward.
I think anything can happen, right?
Yeah,
and will. All right, guys. Again, thanks a bunch. Michael, awesome times, and
yeah, it's great talking to you guys.
The first of many, right?
Yeah, hopefully.
All right. It's always good to get it on record.
Get all those sound bites too.
Yeah.
Just keep adding them. You just make a soundboard.
All right, guys. We'll catch you later, and hope you enjoyed. Thanks again.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Good night.